Group's question is about what changes has Trump's election as president brought to the United States?
Okay, so brought to the United States. So what changes, I guess, will Trump's presidency, so future, right? Yeah, from next year onwards, and not. So do you mean the future presidency or the past presidency? Yeah. So I think the changes that Trump will be bringing to the U.S., well, especially his more conservative traditional agenda compared to the more liberal agenda which the Democrats have been championing for the past 10 years or so. I think will bring change. So, in the States, then teachers, professors, anyone who is in a public capacity, they have to specify, whether they use the pronoun, he, him, or she, her, and you can either choose to be male, or you can choose to be female, or you can choose to be neither, and in fact, you can change. So anytime that I decide today that I want to be female, then I just tell everyone, okay, so from now onwards, refer to me as she or her. That has been the kind of Democrat or left progressive agenda for the past decade or so. But with Trump's presidency, it really shows that, in fact, most Americans do not want this kind of change. So in a sense, then, it's bringing America back to 10, 20 years ago, before there was all this more progressive influence in the States. So yeah, I think the biggest change will be America will become more conservative, more traditional. It won't have such a strong LGBTQ agenda, and also it will become more isolationist as well. So in other words, Americans will probably care less about the world. They'll care more about America. So I think that will be one big change that will happen. But then on the other hand, it could also cause a lot of division as well, because the more conservative traditional parts of society will be saying that, we want to go back to what America was maybe 50 years ago. But then there will be others who are saying that, no, we like what it is like now. So for example, with abortion, with gay rights, then I think there'll probably be more conflict there as well. So it'll be interesting to see. Right. Thanks for the question.
I noticed you have a British accent. So is this from your childhood or when you moved to England?
I'll say both. So when I was a kid in Taiwan, my mom, she's English. So she would speak to me and my brother, and she taught me English as a kid. So I spoke with a slight British accent then. But then I went to England when I was 13 years old, and I studied in England, high school and university. So during that time, then I became much more British in my accent. But then when I graduated from university, I went to Canada. And during my 4 years I was in Canada, then I lost a bit of my British accent. So now, in fact, people in England don't see me as having a British English accent. They think I have a more American or Canadian accent, or they just don't know. They have no idea where I'm from. So I'm a bit confused. Actually, it's a bit like my Chinese as well. I think wherever I go, I kind of pick up the accent where I am. And that's part of change. But actually it's involuntary. I don't intend to change my accent. I just naturally get affected by people around me. Okay, thank you.
So I noticed from your story that
the detector,
Detective.
he called the robot with the pronouns her and she, right? So there would be a notion of like sexualize a robot with gender. So what is your like opinion of like sexualize robot with gender in the first place? What is for the like for a human to have sex with a robot, or it's just like to easier to like get to know each other with a robot?
Yeah, actually, the story is not as obvious from the way in which I told the story, but the original version, because I changed it, the original version is very clear that she is a sex robot and a female sex robot as well. So I kind of like removed most of that part. So yes, I think that is the future. It already exists. You can buy sex robots today already, but they haven't become popular yet. I think probably in the next 10, 20 years they'll become increasingly popular, and that will cause huge issues with regards to ethics, sexual ethics. It might cause issues in marriage as well. And if you're married and one day you come back with a sex robot, your wife might not be happy. So that might cause marriage issues as well. But if you're single and you decide, well, why don't I buy a sex robot online? It doesn't really affect anyone, right? I'm not hurting anyone, am I? It's not like hiring a prostitute, for example. So I think there are a lot of moral issues which probably in the next 10, 20 years or so we'll have to be thinking about and discussing. Because there's obviously the problem here is that, I mean, right now the marriage rate is already going down, right? Especially in Taiwan, the birth rate has plummeted. And if people start having sex robots, then probably they will find, real human beings to be, in one sense, less attractive. Especially if the robots can be made to be really beautiful. And also, they do exactly what you want. They don't have moods, they don't get angry with you, unless you want it to get angry with me. You can say, oh, can you get angry with me now? And so you can completely control everything that it does. So in which case then, I think many would prefer having a machine than having a real human being. Because a human being you can't control. And they might divorce you. A robot will not divorce you, which is one good thing about robots. But then what will happen to marriage? What will happen to the birth rate? What will happen to traditional families? So it can have huge implications for that. So that's why my wife, when we talked about this, then she said, well, in the future, perhaps when we get old, then we might want a robot to look after us. And she said, okay, in which case then you can't get a female robot. And also she can't get a male robot. So we decided that, okay, maybe I'll get like Mickey Mouse or something. In which case then I won't be falling in love with a robot. But if the robot, if it's a really, really beautiful woman in terms of its appearance, then I might end up falling in love with this robot because she looks more attractive than my wife. In which case then she'll get she'll get angry. So yeah, I'm not going to buy a female robot. I'll probably buy a cat or something.
So in that case, would it be better if like robot formed to be not humanoid, but it's like other thing? Would it be better to not affect the human emotions?
Yeah. Actually, I agree. I think the more they are similar to humans, then the easier it is for us to transfer emotions. And you can easily spend a whole week just talking to a robot who looks human, right? And you think that you're actually talking to a human being. So I think our brains will be such that it'd be very easy for us to mistake a human-like robot for a real human being. I mean, even today, then people spend like weeks just playing computer games. and it's just a computer screen. But if it's actually a physical, human-like being, then I think it'd be even easier for us to become completely attached or addicted to that human-like. But if it's in the shape of a dog, it might. In fact, I have a cat, and I said to my wife, I think when we start having, really advanced robots, I'm going to get a robot cat, and I'm going to replace the cat that we currently have. So I think our cat is not going to be happy, but by that time she's probably going to be dead, so that's fine. Because my problem is that cats, I have an issue with the cats that I've had. I've had 2 cats since getting married, and they're all really, really weird. They're not like normal cats. I stroke my cat and she doesn't like it. Or she just pees on my bed, and she only pees on my side of the bed. Okay, not my wife's side. She only pees on my side. The cat just doesn't like me. Okay, so I don't really like cats anymore. So I'm going to get a robot cat. That does exactly what I want her to do. So yes, in that sense, then the robot cat will replace my current cat. But that's fine, because I think my cat won't mind. She might be happy with another owner anyway. But it's completely different when it comes to my wife. So my cat I can replace. That's not going to be a moral issue. She can be adopted by maybe some other owner. Maybe we have 2 cats. One that is a real cat, one is a machine. I mean, it's fine. But you can't replace your wife, right? So I think that's where it could well be better if robots were not made in the form of human beings. I think you have a good point there. Okay, thanks.
I think interpreter will be replaced by AI.
I think it will be. That's a good question, because so I do 3 kinds of interpretation, interpretation is usually more run as written translation. So I do 2 kinds of interpretation. So one is consecutive interpretation, in which I'm on stage, and after the speaker finishes, then I interpret, and it goes like that. A, B, A, B, A, B. So that's the first kind. The second kind of interpretation, which I was doing last week, is simultaneous translation, or simultaneous interpretation. And there I just had a microphone, and I'm listening and speaking into the microphone, and people with headphones, whatever is being said, I just have to speak really quickly. So that's the second kind, which is usually what's used at international conferences. We have lots of different languages, and for speed, then you just need simultaneous interpretation. And then the third kind is translation. And for that, then what I usually do is proofread. So I don't do so much, someone gives me a Chinese document and I try to translate into English, because usually someone has done that. What I do is I check the English to see whether it's an accurate translation, or vice versa, English into Chinese both. And so what I think, first, the simultaneous interpretation will probably be more quickly made redundant. So I think that will be replaced by machines fairly soon. And the reason why is because with simultaneous interpretation, the accuracy level isn't very high. And because you have to be speaking at the same time as listening, right? And also no one's checking to see whether or not you are accurate in your interpretation. Because no one, I mean, maybe someone who is like your teacher, your professor or someone, they can do it if you are at school. But at a conference, everyone is doing it. It's all happening at the same time. So, and the chances are is that you are the only one who is in that room who can speak the 2 languages sometimes. But even if you're not, it's not like on stage where everyone can hear whether or not you are accurate in terms of your interpretation. So because the accuracy level isn't as high, so therefore I think the machine can easily replace it, and it can be a lot more accurate. And also because simultaneous interpretation is really expensive. I don't know what it is in Taiwan, but in China, then one day is, I think, 10,000 RMB. Yeah, so you do it for one day and you have enough money to be able to live for a month. Well, sometimes. So because it's really expensive at a sort of like international level, so that's where you can save a lot of money if you use a machine instead. So I think that will be replaced fairly soon. The consecutive kind, I don't think will be. And the reason why is because people like having someone on stage. And when you have a speaker on stage speaking, then you have the interpreter on stage speaking as well. Then it has a kind of dynamic to it. Yeah. So I think that's very different because oftentimes the interpreter on stage kind of has to express themselves like the speaker does. So for example, if the speaker is like does this motion, right? The interpreter also does this motion. If the speaker says, yeah, we need more, democracy, and then the interpreter says, 我们需要更多民主, yeah. So you have to do the same, and so it becomes more of a show, and so I think that won't be replaced anytime soon. But then translation, then a simple kind of translation will be replaced, but the final proofreading, the final editing won't be. Because you need a human being in order to check whether or not it's accurate. So yeah, I think some will be, some won't. Okay, thank you.
I want to ask that among all the countries you live in, and which one do you like the most?
It sounds like a trick question. Yeah. So maybe I should say Taiwan, yeah, because I've lived in Taiwan the longest. I lived in Taiwan from when I was 4 months old until I was 13. So I lived here for 13 years. And then I came back 10 years ago. So I lived in Taiwan for 23 years. Yeah. So in terms of which country I'm most familiar with, is probably Taiwan. And both my kids were born in Taiwan. So they are local native Taiwanese. Then, yeah, I think really for me, each place has things which I really like about it. Taiwan, I like the convenience of Taiwan. I like the way in which Taiwanese tend to be very polite, well-mannered. I seldom, get into arguments. People very seldom like shout at each other in Taiwan, at least in public anyway. Maybe in private they do. But yeah, I feel that Taiwan tends to be quite peaceful compared to anywhere else where I've lived. In, for example, mainland China, then it's a lot. Wow, it just varies so much. So the rich poor is such that there are some places which are just really, really poor, and some places which are quite undeveloped, and some places which can be a bit violent there as well. So I find that Taiwan tends to be the safest place that I've been to, and the best healthcare as well. So that's what I like about Taiwan. In terms of food, I probably like China best. Especially in major cities, Beijing. I lived in Beijing for 8 years. I lived in Shenzhen for about a year. I lived in Guangzhou for half a year, well, close to a year. So I find that major cities in China have the best Chinese cuisine, because in Taiwan there's mostly Taiwanese cuisine. But in major cities in China, then you have like all different cuisines from all throughout China, and yeah, the spices, etc., like Sichuan cuisine. It's very hard to get authentic Sichuan cuisine in Taiwan because you just don't have the spices. They're not grown locally. And also vegetables, there are certain kinds of vegetables in China which you don't have in Taiwan. So again, there's not as much variety. So I think in terms of Chinese food, or food in general, that I like China best. Job opportunities, I also like China. So when I was there, then it's so easy for you to get jobs in different, well, maybe not today, but like 10 years ago or 20 years ago. When I first went there, it was more like 20 years ago. I had so many options in terms of the work I wanted to do. So at that time, I just felt that because so many different sectors are not as developed as in Taiwan, and certainly not as developed as, say, in England. So you have a lot of options in terms of what you want to do. So I could have, in fact, I was simultaneously, I was working in a church, I was teaching at a university, and I had my own company. I came back to Taiwan, and all of a sudden, it's very hard for me to find work. So that's another thing I like about China. England, I like in education. So in England, then you have as much homework in 1 week as students in Taiwan have in 1 day. Yeah. So my brother is in England right now, and he has 2 kids who are just a little bit older than my daughter, and every week they have like 1 hour homework, once a week. My daughter has more than an hour homework every single day, and she's 4th grade. So when I went to England, it was brilliant. In Taiwan, I finished Guoyi. So when I was 13, and me and my classmates will be studying until past 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock every night. I went to England. There's no work to do. So I just spent all my time, just daydreaming, or reading books. Nothing to do with my studies. So England is brilliant in terms of not having to work too hard. And I mean, I ended up getting to Oxford University. So I guess I did do some work. But what I mean is that you have to do so much more work in Taiwan or in China in order to get to a top university than you have in England. That's what I like about England. Yeah, you have good education without having to work too hard. Canada is beautiful. So I really enjoyed skiing in Canada. I enjoy the sea, the mountains, and also it's very multicultural. So in Canada, I never felt like a foreigner. In Taiwan, in China, in England, I feel like a foreigner because I'm mixed. But in Canada, I didn't feel like a foreigner at all. And people just accept me because everyone in Canada looks different. So there's no one kind of Canadian skin color, for example. So you can be of any race and you can be Canadian. So that's what I liked most about Canada. Okay, but thank you for the question.
Do you think that AI can really replace all of our life or job in the future?
Yeah, that's tricky. Because originally, 10, 20 years ago, then people were predicting that manual jobs would be replaced by AI. So, people who sweep the floors, take out the garbage, anything that really just needs physical strength will be replaced by AI. But what actually has become the case is that no, those jobs are hard to be replaced by AI because it's very hard for robots to be able to behave, to act physically the way in which humans do. It's actually a lot harder for robots to do certain tasks. But instead, then the jobs that are being replaced by AI are more information. So with say ChatGPT, it can write a paper far quicker than human beings can. It's like journalists, a lot of them are losing their jobs because you don't need so many journalists to be able to write articles because AI can do it. So for that reason, because people got it wrong before, I'm not sure whether our prediction today will be right in 10, 20 years' time. So I'm not sure exactly, who knows. But then, on the other hand, I guess, for one thing, certainly the top jobs will be replaced. The people who are designing the AI in the first place. But then, there are very few of those. But how about for most people? What kind of jobs will AI replace? Well, I think AI will probably be in tandem with humans. So, for example, now there are already 7-Elevens where it's completely AI, right? But the thing is that I don't want to go. Normally, I don't mind, buying from like a machine. But there are times, for example, if I'm by myself, my family is away, and I'm at home, and I've been working all day at home, not seeing a single human being, and then I decide, okay, I'm going to go out for lunch. And the reason why I go out for lunch rather than like call Uber is because I want to see human beings. I want to go and sit in a restaurant where there's a human being who's going to make my food, where there are other human beings who are there eating. And so other times then I don't actually need it to buy anything, but I go to a 7-Eleven to buy something, not because I need it, but because I want to talk to a human being. So sorry, that's one of those sad things. Once you're married, then most of the time you spend time with your family, and if your family is traveling or something, then you're all by yourself. Anyway, so that's probably something that you've never experienced. But for me, then if I'm by myself, then I want human beings to talk to, and so that's why I go to a 7-Eleven sometimes in order to talk to a human being. So if it's a robot there, I don't want to talk to a robot. So you see my point. So I think there are certain jobs which could easily be done by robots, by AI. But we'll probably still opt to go somewhere where it's actually a human being who's going to serve you rather than a robot who will serve you. So I think that's where some jobs won't be replaced by AI. However good they are, however good their services, I think we still would like to have an actual human being to talk to. Yeah. Thank you.
Because you're a pastor, right? So do you consider it's okay that we play to be gods? I mean, we are creating all these robots or creatures or whatever you want to call it without soul. So do you think it's ethically to create like robots or any kind of creature without soul?
Okay, wow, that's a very hard question. I think what I would say is that it is wrong for us to create creatures with souls, as opposed to create a creature without soul. Because in a sense, then we've been creating machines, since whenever the wheel was invented, etc. So yeah, for thousands of years, we've been creating machines, and machines have just become, more and more powerful, more and more intelligent, in a sense. And with computers, for example, computers can do most of the things that human beings or the human brain can do, in a sense, without having a soul. And even though in the past, then there was a lot of controversy in terms of the Industrial Revolution and how that affects human beings, etc. And some people, pastors, were actually against the Industrial Revolution. And for the past 50 years or so, a lot of pastors have also been against computers. Seeing actually computers are going to take over, civilization, take over human beings, and are, actually evil in terms of its influence. And yeah, I mean, the internet, a lot of bad stuff on the internet. But I guess we've come to a place in which we just accept that computers are part of life, and in fact, they can be very convenient. For example, my church is on YouTube, and every Sunday morning we have about 100 people who come together in the same building. But then the whole service is put online on YouTube, and probably about 300 or 400 people then watch it on YouTube. So we have 3 or 4 times more people who are able to take part in our church service as a result of the technology, computers, internet, social media, etc. So yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff on YouTube, and social media as well can be very addictive. But on the other hand, then it can also be effective in making whatever message you want known to the world. But then as AI becomes more intelligent than human beings, I think, yeah, that's where it becomes problematic. Because I think the biggest problem is this, and it is what's called transhumanism. Because if the human being, why are we more powerful? Why are we more valuable than animals? You know, why was I saying that I can replace my cat, but I can't replace my wife? You know, because like last night, middle of the night, I spent about 20 minutes killing all the cockroaches in my house. And when my wife woke up, she's like sweeping all these cockroaches. And wow, my goodness! Like, how many do you kill? Why is it that we can just kill cockroaches without morally feeling that we've done something evil? At least I don't feel evil. Yeah, I love killing cockroaches. Maybe I am evil. Anyway, so, but then there's a difference between cockroaches and human beings. And in the past, especially since the Enlightenment, then it's human intelligence, Homo sapien, that makes us different from from animals. So if intelligence is what makes us at a higher level than an animal, and our value as a human being is based upon our intelligence, then what happens when AI becomes more intelligent than human beings? Then surely, it makes sense that AI will become more valued than humans. So if I have a robot that's smarter than my wife, then why is my wife still more valuable than the robot? There's a big question mark there. So I think that's the problem when we value humans according to intelligence, because then AI one day will become more intelligent than humans, and in one sense they are, and so then we have a huge problem with the value of the human life. And I think as a pastor, that's where I say that no, human beings are not dependent upon their intelligence. So you can't say that someone who has an IQ of 160, is 10 times more valuable than someone who has an IQ of 60, or fully grown human beings more valuable than a baby. No, I'll say that all human life has infinite value, and that's because we are created in God's image. And so there's something godness about every human being that AI or a machine will never have. So I think that's where mark the line. And so I don't mind having more and more intelligent machines. I find them useful. But I think the problem is if I start giving the machine greater value than I give to a human being. I think that's the problem. So that's where my own faith, my own belief would be that human beings are always going to be more valuable than machines and AI, simply because machines were created not in God's image, whereas human beings are. Thank you for the question.
The money to invest into AI would be do you think, in your opinion, would be better for dealing with poverty rather than investing to the AI thingy? Would it be better to delete the hungriness of people first, or it would be better to build the machine to help people with the workforce?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good question in terms of how money is spent as far as AI is concerned. And yeah, I think that's the problem, because right now then you have these billionaires who are funding the AI research, and what is it going to? Well, most likely it's going to whatever they are interested in order for them to essentially make more money. Yeah. So if AI is just, money is spent on AI just to create more money for the ultra rich, I morally do not see that as being right. But if the AI, or the money that goes into AI, is used in order to cure cancer, so prevent certain diseases or to cure certain diseases, that will greatly improve the quality of life for perhaps millions of people. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that is great. So yeah, in terms of world hunger, well, I feel that AI can be used in order to also work out the best conditions to be planting certain crops, or maybe just globally which areas can be better used to plant certain things and vice versa, or what are the optimum conditions in order to create a maximum amount of food in places where maybe there's a lack of rain. So yeah, I think also AI can be used to reduce world hunger. And so for that reason, then I don't see I don't think there's a tension. We either try to resolve world hunger or we try to improve AI. Now I think we can use AI to improve world hunger in order to deal with health problems. So I guess the main issue is why are you doing what you're doing? Why are we investing in AI? And what is it for? Is it to create better sex robots, for example? In which case, then I think that would be a problem. Right? But if it's to provide assistance, like for the elderly, so that those who can't look after themselves has a robot to look after them, that could improve the quality of life hugely for millions around the world. So I guess it is that decision in terms of, okay, what are we going to invest in, and the AI, what are we trying to get it to do? So if it's for human flourishing and human welfare, then I think it's a great thing. But there are so many things that AI can do. If it's just in order to try to realize the fantasy of some billionaire, in order for them to explore outer space, I have my doubts in terms of the value of doing that. Okay, thank you.
My question is, in your experience, what's the most important thing I can do as an English major to stay relevant in a world where AI can do so much? And how do I avoid feeling like my skill, like translation or interpretation, may eventually be replaced by technology? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's definitely a problem. Although, if you are at a position in which you can be proofreading and checking, what AI has done, then yeah, you won't be out of work. But it does depend. So in other words, if you are, if your skill level is higher than most, then you will be the one who will be checking the translation or interpretation of the AI. Yeah. So certainly in that case, then it can be an encouragement for you to improve your level of skill. But certainly you'll probably replace 90% of the jobs. And so if you're not of the top 10%, or maybe even 1%, then there's a good chance that your skill might not be used, in which case there will be a problem. But that's where English can be used globally in every job. Well, maybe not every job, but every type of job. And so English then allows you not to necessarily just be doing translation interpretation, but allows you to be doing many other kind of jobs, but you need to combine it with other skills as well. So that's where I would encourage you to consider not English as being your only vocational skill, but being kind of like a foundation upon which you have other skills as well. So yeah, you need to consider, apart from being a translator, apart from being an interpreter, maybe there are other positions, other professions that won't be so easily replaced. Things that need more human interaction. In which case, then those kind of jobs. I mean, one obvious example would be like English-speaking tour guide. I don't think the tour guide will quite so easily be replaced by AI. Maybe the app. You can have on your phone, you can like Google Map, and it tells you exactly where to go. But then many people still like having a human being as their tour guide, or working in tourist industry, because they want a human being to be talking to. So that's where English is a must. But then on top of the English, then you also have other skills as well. So I think that's probably something to be considering. How you can have additional skills that will make you more marketable.